This space is intended to bring awareness to the hurdles of third-party reproduction and help navigate the anxiety and societal stigmas that come with it. The road to parenthood looks different for everyone. For those of us who can't have a traditional family, the aim is to strengthen the resolve against society's expectations. We're known as the worst club with the best members, and I'm blessed to have found my tribe. You're listening to Mothers in Arms. I'm your host, Leslie Lopez. This is episode Protecting Your Rights, Song Law Group. Founder, principal attorney, and CEO of Song Law Group, Ralph Song, has been providing expert legal counsel for surrogacy, egg donation, adoption, and guardianship for over 25 years. Ralph has practices in California, New York, Washington, Illinois, Oklahoma, Arizona, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. His credentials and national recognitions speak for themselves. His practices bring unmatched authority and care to family-building journeys inspired by one of his own. Ensuring his clients' rights are protected from every angle and every possibility, this fertility super lawyer has seen and heard it all. His firm even offers opportunities to those who legit need financial assistance with this. It's a win-win to inquire if this is a path you're embarking on, maybe revisiting. Song Law Group is ready to tackle what we have not yet seen in action in the world of ART, but is coming our way via groundbreaking science. Without further ado, let's get into this. Welcome, Ralph. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us this start of 2026.
Well, good to see you, Leslie.
Likewise. You're the founder, principal attorney, and CEO of Song Law Group, providing compassionate and legal counsel for surrogacy, gamete donation, adoption, and guardianship. You have practices in 6 states, I believe. Is that right? 6 different ones?
Yes, that's right. Our attorneys are licensed in 6 states.
What are those?
We're licensed in California, Arizona, Washington, Illinois, New York, and Oklahoma.
Would you say that those 6 states are the busiest sort of surrogacy states?
Yeah, it's a little random how we ended up in these states, I would say. I went to law school at the University of Chicago, so Illinois is my first bar. And I moved to California during the first dot-com boom, around 2000. And that was my second bar. And I added Washington and Arizona as states because of surrogacy law. Arizona, because I have a personal connection. I grew up in Arizona. And my partner, Rainey, she has California, Oklahoma, and New York.
Covering all, as you're really from east to west. I love that. What got you into fertility law practice, Ralph?
So it was also a little bit of kismet because I didn't plan to be a surrogacy lawyer. When I had about 10 years of working for the state of California. I was an employment lawyer for the state. And I was approached by a friend from high school who owned the website adoption.com. And he had heard about my adoption experience because we had a personal adoption experience. And he suggested I just quit my job and become an adoption attorney. And it took a little bit of persuading, but I did that. I took a big leap to go into a field that I didn't know that many practitioners and, and it turned out like, because my wife and I had experience with IVF, we had done multiple embryo transfers and worked with a couple different doctors. But I was kind of aware of surrogacy when we were doing our IVF journey.
Can I ask, Ralph, when you were going through the IVF journey and just like all the roller coaster curveballs that come with it, did you and your wife have mental health support during that time?
No, and I think it's something that, you know, we were pretty young. We were a young couple. We'd only been married maybe 3 years or so, but, over 15 years ago. And there wasn't so much discussion about IVF. We didn't personally have any support ourselves. And
Sorry.
in retrospect, it would have been great to know about, you know, support groups and things like that, because we were definitely going on it on our own. We had to do our own research about who's good and which doctors to go to. And, you
Right.
know, there just wasn't that much information out there at that time. Even at that time, this is the time when people are doing 3 embryo transfers.
Right.
The PGS testing is very new, very expensive,
Right.
and that's something we're doing. And then we're just going based on graded embryos, and we're getting encouraged to transfer more and more embryos, and that it's kind of a yeah. I wish we had that support then. We knew about surrogacy because like all the receptionists and nurses seemed to be pregnant at the clinic.
Oh,
Yeah. And I wondered whether any of
what's
them were
going
actually
on? What's in the water?
their kids or something. And as a state employee at the time, it just didn't seem like it was in reach for us. So,
Mm.
um, but that's always been a something in my mind. Like we know that the surrogacy process, the gamete donation process, is very expensive for people, and
Yes.
I've experienced that as well. So we try to help out in ways that we can. We have a program called Seed Coach, which we give to our intended parents, and that's like a financial coach that will help look at their finances and help them budget for their next journey. And that's something we offer for free for them. Yeah,
Wow.
it's we put it on our website. We don't get so many takers, but we definitely
Really?
it, it's something that we want people to consider about us. And we also take like legal insurance and things like that that can help with the reducing their legal fees.
Is it one case a year that you offer that to, or
No, we can take about 35 people simultaneously for
wow,
under
that
C
is so
code.
generous.
Yeah.
What a generous pro bono gift. I everybody needs to know that. And you know what? That's so lovely because yeah, it is very expensive and besides taking out a loan or applying for a grant,
Well, thank you.
it may be obvious that you need a lawyer to go through a fertility journey, but maybe for some people it isn't. Can you explain a little bit why it's so important to have a fertility expert when donating your eggs, when becoming a surrogate, when going on either of these journeys with women who do this?
Well, in some cases, well, for surrogacy, it's the law that you have an attorney on both sides, at least for most of the states that we practice in. So I think what I tell people is, how you get a big license agreement whenever you update your phone,
Right.
and
Yes.
yeah, and you don't read that license agreement, but it's pages and pages and pages. When you do a surrogacy agreement, you're going to be embarking on a journey with someone for a year, possibly longer. And that's a contract you really need to understand. Uh, even if you read it by yourself, you want to have someone look at it with you, a lawyer that's going to have experience in knowing what terms are unusual and you know, what terms they should pay particular attention to, and just making sure that whatever is in the contract is what their expectations are, because that is a long time to be committed with someone. uh, you
Right.
definitely
Right.
want to choose a lawyer to make sure that you're protected and your expectations are going to be met. Um, as a lawyer, we also continue to service the contract after it's signed. If people come back to us with questions, if people they have a dispute, they need to write a demand letter, they need to amend the contract. Those are things that we will do, and typically we don't add an additional cost for that. For gamete donation, a lot of the states are silent about whether you need to have two lawyers, but at the same time, it's a very important transaction. Like, you need to understand that you do not want to have a situation where one party will come back years later and question whether the contract is valid and the parental rights are forfeited or something like that, possession or use of the embryos or your eggs or sperm. So the lawyer is a relatively small cost compared to the cost of the procedures themselves. Um,
Right.
I'd say our fee is probably like a tenth of an agency fee for surrogacy,
Mm,
and probably a tenth of the agency fee for like egg donation as well.
I
So
see.
it's definitely, I would say it's like a, a relatively small cost to feel secure that
100%.
legally you're not going to be having problems down the road.
Down the line during it. As an intended parent who went through an agency and had lawyers for both my surrogate and myself, absolutely. At first, I was like, why do we need this? I'm at this top agency. You guys have been doing this for years. It's all in. But yes, as soon as you start, you really understand everybody needs to protect it, not just intended parents, surrogates. And I could see specifically for a woman who's donating her eggs, yeah, the last thing she wants is something, 20 years from now, someone just messing with her lineage or trying to take, you don't know what people are capable of, right?
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind with gamete donation is when it's anonymous, the expectations of the parties are really we don't know what the child is going to want in the future, right? The child is likely
Right.
going to be curious about their origins and may want to have contact with the donor in the future, and you want to probably have that anticipated, like, is there a way that we're going to be able to reach the donor, that not just for like medical emergencies or you know um, updates on medical information, but you know I think in the future with DNA testing and facial recognition and AI, a lot of donations are not going to be anonymous. That
Yeah.
that the child may be able to determine who the donor is, and having some mechanism in place for the future contact, that's definitely something you want to do.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. My daughter comes from a donor, and I think, gosh, I really have to wait until she's 18 to find out what's going on with this person, if they're still healthy. Like, I understand they're anonymous and I completely respect that. But if the agency were to somehow have some kind of updates, communication, I agree. That's sort of like the next wave of that we still need fine tuning with donors and children of donors, 100%.
Hmm.
At the federal level, currently, there is no law that mandates health insurance plans cover IVF. Although recently, I just heard SB 729 came out. Is that right? And that actually does make a shift where certain things will get covered more. I know just this past January, there were certain drugs through TrumpRx.gov. A drug manufacturer called Serrano is going to offer certain medications to be discounted. But how does that play into the Affordable Care Act? How does that play into SB 729? Are these three different proposals from our president?
Yeah, so at this point, we don't have too much detail about what Trump's IVF mandate will do other than discounted drug prices. At this point, it may be more of a state level that we might see action on. So, for example, California, starting in January, new group plans of over 100 members, they do have to offer infertility coverage. And that's not just, you know, Clomid. It includes embryo transfers, it includes egg retrievals, it includes even transfers to, third party egg retrievals. So that is the really big thing in California, that if you work for a large enough company that will be able to offer this insurance, you can actually use you can use your benefits on third party reproduction. That means an egg donor, it could mean a transfer of the embryo to the surrogate. And this can definitely help. And the great thing is it will apply if you have a diagnosis of infertility, and also if you cannot get pregnant on your own, which could mean like if you're a same sex couple, you may not be able to, you may require third party reproductive assistance. So you could get
Right.
insurance coverage that way. Illinois has a similar law. It also covers third party reproduction. Uh, some other states, I'm not familiar with other states that we're not licensed in, but the hope
Hmm.
is that more and more states will start applying their own infertility mandates for coverage. And that would definitely help, you know, make third party reproduction more affordable to people as well as IVF in general.
It's a bit surreal to see 729 passed. Something happened. Enough people got together, put the calls and the letters and the emails and all of this, and it made it happen.
We have been kind of concerned about what's going to happen to the Affordable Care Act because it is kind of open enrollment is very important to a lot of people doing surrogacy because open enrollment is a
Yes.
time period when surrogates can get onto insurance, and those insurance plans cannot have exclusions for pre-existing conditions. And pregnancy could otherwise be a pre-existing condition. Before the Affordable Care Act, if you're pregnant and open enrollment comes around, you can't get new insurance because you can get insurance, but it wouldn't cover the pregnancy. But it is getting more expensive for people because those subsidies increase the number of people in the pool, and then that reduces the overall age of people who are doing the insurance, and so the Affordable Care Act is getting more and more expensive, and we hope that it'll continue to be something, or if the Affordable Care Act doesn't exist, there will be insurance that will continue to cover pregnant women, regardless of the stage of their pregnancy when they enroll.
There are certain states, California included, where liens occur within health insurance. Certain policies have a category of people that don't have access to these third party reproduction rights. But you don't really know this until the end, right? It's like you've hired, at least I've heard of several cases where they did all the things right. They hired the insurance, the person had the insurance. And then after the baby's born, they get this bill in the mail because of this lien that really health insurance is just sort of, it feels like they're pulling it out of a hat to say, you know what, either you make too much money, or because you're same sex couple, or because you have an assisted life, or someone like me who is not married and over the age of 40 would not have access to these benefits. Is that
So
legal?
you're making a good point. Like you're actually unintentionally making the argument why lien shouldn't exist. And we hope to convince a lawyer to take this type of case because so in California as well as most of the West Coast states and some of a number of states, they have insurance companies that will apply a lien to a surrogacy pregnancy or surrogacy birth. And what that means is they would treat it kind of like a accident or a workers' comp case. In workers' comp cases and accident injury cases, insurers can charge to basically the settlement award or the judgment, they can charge their medical bills. And they don't need to charge their insurance prices. They can charge like a market rate. So if you broke your leg and in a hit and run accident or something like that, you might pay $500 at the hospital. But then if you get a check for $100,000 from the auto insurer or something like that, then the hospital could bill you a higher amount because they could say, well, I'm not really sure why this is the case, but they're allowed to recover more when there's an award or a damages award. And some insurance companies decided to apply that to surrogacy because, well, someone else is paying for the medical expenses. In a way, they're reimbursing for the medical expenses, and that person might have a lot more money, so they're applying it. And I think it isn't an unfair thing that it's a contractual. It's in the annual plans. They'll say that whether they will apply a lien or not, and they would base it on the surrogate's compensation. It will be some percent of the surrogate's compensation. And as you pointed out, the people who are affected by this are not necessarily a random group of people. The people who are intended parents who end up paying the liens will be people who experience infertility. They will be people who are over 40. They could be single or same sex couples as well, disproportionately. Because people who are pursuing surrogacy typically do not get pregnant on their own or give birth on their own. They will be in a protected category, either age, marital status, sexual orientation, disability, because disability includes infertility. We're trying to find a solution, maybe legislative. Last year, a group of people tried to pass a law to prohibit liens in California, and they're going to try again this year. There might be a litigation. There might be a way to do something about the liens in litigation. But for now, they are something that adds to the cost for some intended parents.
It takes away from, like, I mean, obviously financially, but just all the joy of finally having the child that they've been working so hard towards, right? And it's just like these financial burdens that were not part of their very extensive already, right? The very extensive list of financial responsibilities that it takes to do something like this. Did I hear that there was a state that actually was able to stop the liens?
Yes, so Nevada is one state that prohibits liens for surrogacy. They also prohibit exclusions so that a policy cannot exclude a surrogacy pregnancy. And pregnancy may be a qualifying event, so that you may be able to get insurance once the surrogate becomes pregnant.
I see.
So the website is ieaalliance.org. And that will be something, you can go there and you can check out what legislation is pending to try to stop liens. They'll start with California, and if successful, they'll continue with other states.
Ralph, you've been practicing for over 25 years in this field, internationally as well as nationally. I'm curious if there's any countries where surrogacy is illegal.
Well, compensated surrogacy is illegal in most countries. That means the United States is a little bit unique, although there are more and more countries that are allowing surrogacy. It's been kind of a back and forth. Like early 2000s, India was very popular. Thailand was popular for surrogacy. And then those two countries, they stopped. They don't allow international intended parents anymore. Some other countries still exist, like the Ukraine and Mexico recently legalized to some extent surrogacy. And I know that people are going to Colombia and some other countries in South America too. I think Argentina. But there are some countries where there is no law about whether surrogacy is legal or not. And I believe Malta was one of those recently. And those kinds of countries, they can crack down on surrogacy suddenly. So the United States has been for a long time one place where it's been popular for surrogacy because it's legal in most states and an expanding number of states. And compensated surrogacy is also legal. So we're a popular destination. Great Britain, Canada, they do not allow compensated surrogacy, but they have altruistic surrogacy. Some states in Australia as well. Um, but it's kind of a patchwork. Like I would say, most countries, most of Europe, surrogacy is not legal. A few countries, it will be legal if it's not compensated. And then a small number of countries, it is legal and compensated.
And what about egg donation? Is there, I mean, are there countries where you just can't do that?
Well, I know, like, for example, China and Japan, there's not, they don't allow egg donation. So Korea as well. Um, so people would come to the U.S. if they're looking for a donor. Uh, a country like Taiwan, they allow like one egg donation per donor, but the United States allows six ASRM guidelines. You can do six egg donations. So some donors may actually, if they have a visa, they come to the U.S., they could potentially come for transfers here.
I
Um,
see.
but yeah, just like surrogacy, egg donation is typically not legal in most of the world.
Can you tell us in California what an egg donor can get for her biological gametes?
Well, it's kind of a whatever the market will allow, right? If there's an intended parent who's interested in having the woman as a donor and they're willing to pay their asking price, then the, they can have a contract for her to donate eggs. And we always emphasize in the contract that we are not the donor is not selling her body part. She's not giving up parental rights in exchange for money. She's not selling a baby or a body part. Um, she's getting compensated for her time, pain, and suffering, her effort and inconvenience, lost wages, and things like that. Those are the types of things, that are covered in the compensation that the donor can get. There's not really any prohibition that someone get, like, you know they can't get over X number of dollars. There's no limit, and we've seen some really high numbers as well, which I
Yes,
can't
yes.
say.
Yeah. I'll say them. I mean, I've seen something as far high up as $210,000 for one round of her biological eggs, depending on the agency that you go to. And I guess that was what facts drive the price scale. And you're saying it's the time, the compensation. I'm sorry, it's the time, just
Pain
her.
and
She's
suffering.
uncomfortable and suffering the drugs. It's that it has nothing to do with what they look like.
well, well, conditions. I mean, qualifications of the donor are taken into consideration. Like, um, there are certain attributes that people look for in donors. They could be looking at education, height, blood type, you know, physical characteristics. Some people are looking for donors that look like them, right? So that they feel like they'll bond well with the child will bond well with them. But
Do you see ever in the future this being more regulated?
well, it seems like everything is getting more and more regulated over time. Um,
Hmm.
in the future, I mean, I'm not sure what egg donation will look like because technology wise, there's research going on to see, like, if you can use your skin cells to create like a gamete, right? And then you can create an embryo from not necessarily your gametes, but combining gametes, but from some other
Yourself.
cell, right? And
Hmm.
then
Right.
it if that's the case, then people who are older or people who have a low ovarian reserve, they might be able to have they may no longer need egg donors.
I see.
It's possible in the next 20 years we may see that happening. Um, and
Wow.
they've even talked about, like, it's work that you could they could be like a same sex couple or something like that they wouldn't need a
Right.
male contributor. Um,
Hmm.
to create an embryo.
Wow, that's science right there. How would someone be able to, in, in order to do their due diligence, do the right research? How do they vouch? How can they find out if this person is vouchable? Like, are there platforms online? I know Seeds would be a good place for someone to go and check out, right? Like, if this company you're interested in, if the law firm you're looking at is vouchable, is there something else besides Seeds?
Oh, I'm a member of Quad A and ACAL. ACAL is adoption and the Academy of California Adoption and Art Attorneys, and ACAL is the American Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproductive Technology Attorneys. So these are two organizations where you have to be invited or accepted to join. You apply and then you get accepted to join, and you have to have follow their ethical requirements.
Awesome. I'll put
I,
those links up.
yeah, and I think another thing to consider is really like you want to ask the attorney like how long is it going to take, right? Uh,
Yes.
if an attorney has like a side practice where they do a lot of litigation, then they might be in court or they might be at a deposition or dealing with some deadline. We do try to get through our cases and like always have time to work on our cases so we can move them forward.
I'm hearing no question is a bad question because it might seem obvious, right? Someone's going to come to you and they're right. You're right. They're going to think, oh, this is going to take 9 months or whatever it is. And not always, right? You're right. Like, and for
I,
you to respond, how long is this going to take? It's not so easy, right?
I'll
Because
qualify. I'll qualify. There are no bad questions that come from you, but if you ask ChatGPT or some AI AI platform, what are questions I should ask my attorney? Then we're going to get a lot of questions that are not really necessary.
yeah,
uh,
don't type it into Chat GPT. Talk to someone who's been through assisted reproductive
yeah,
journeys.
don't put the contract through ChatGPT and ask what questions you should ask.
Speaking of vouching, there has been in the news this last year several surrogacy agencies accused of escrow fraud. But I think a key point there is if you're going to a surrogacy agency and they want to hold your escrow, that's a red flag. Is that safe to say?
I would say so. There's some states where the state doesn't say anything about whether the agency can hold escrow, but more and more states are saying the agency cannot hold the escrow. For example, California, Washington, Illinois. Even Illinois is saying the attorney for one of the parties shouldn't be holding the escrow. But the I know that it's scary to put a lot of money with a third party, and that money might stay there for a long time. So you can investigate an escrow company. You can ask to see its bond. It needs to have adequate bond that's going to cover all of its money as well as cover theft and misconduct. So if you're if you're considering an escrow company, you should be asking for those things. You want to ask about what third party controls they have so that it's not one person that can do the disbursement and no one else can stop them. Like they need to have multiple layers of protection. So what happened in those cases where there's been like escrow mismanagement or escrow fraud, we do see it's a case where one person might have control of the escrow and then their support staff or everyone else, they don't have access to it. And then they can get away with funding whatever it is that they were funding until someone catches them because they don't have any more money to put into the escrow. And we really do hope that, all those cases are prosecuted when someone steals a huge amount of money from vulnerable people, then, they deserve to be punished. And uh, I don't really know what it is that drives people to steal money when they're entrusted to keep the money. Uh, but they shouldn't get away with it. And if the agency says they want to hold escrow, just get a third party to come to hold escrow.
Yes, that's right. Because some people will still work with these agencies, right? Like if you just push it and say, no, I don't want you to hold it. I'm going to use this escrow company. Some companies will let you do that. Gosh, well, I mean, I know justice takes a while, and that's all we can hope, right? Wherever Dominique is, wherever she is in New Orleans, or wherever these bad actors are, maybe are not in jail right now, but I feel like it will come if we keep at it, right? If we keep speaking about it and pointing fingers at them, and people keep coming up and saying, "I was affected." We can hope that it'll only discourage other companies from wanting to do the same.
And I think one of the really good things we saw, I mean, it's not a, it's a silver lining that when Surrogacy Connections closed down in December, there was really a big outpouring of support from the agencies, from attorneys, from mental health professionals, from escrow companies. Um, and I know it's hard because people lost money. They could lose their life savings with the agency, but there was a community outpouring to try to support people who were affected, and it is encouraging to see that people volunteered their services, their time, their agency, waived agency fee,
It really
attorney's
is
fees, and things like that. And hopefully people can continue their journey. We've offered Seed Coach to anyone who's affected domestically by
amazing.
Surrogacy Connections, and they don't have to sign up with us for any kind of legal any kind of legal work. We can just sign them up, and even if they have to delay their journey, they can try to use that benefit.
Wow, they must have been beyond happy to walk into that opportunity from your firm. How wonderful. And I feel like these types of actions really speak for the community that third party reproduction is, right? It's a very warm and welcoming community, and these little offshoots where there was fraud, where there were bad actors, that's what gets on the media, unfortunately, and then everyone starts talking about, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah,
But those, like,
there's been a lot of bad news about surrogacy recently, and we do hope that everyone, people who have had successful experiences, we want you to share them on the internet, share them on social media, and share the photos and the aftermath and the stories. And people will see that, you can't just paint a broad brush on surrogacy. And we hope that people understand that surrogacy is a very normal process, and um, understand that it's like socially acceptable and a viable way of expanding your family.
what do you hope to see next in this community of third party reproduction?
Well, I think I do hope to see, like, I feel like Congress, you know, we don't know of anybody. I know that Mitt Romney, like, I think he had either kids or maybe his children had children from surrogacy, but I feel like we need like someone in Congress to be really like our champion. We need someone to
Yes,
say like, you know, this is surrogacy should be, surrogacy is great. Surrogacy should be protected, and we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater with laws without involving the testimony of surrogates and intended parents. Like, we can't pass legislation without hearing from the stakeholders. So I do hope that a development that we have this year is that we do find a champion in Congress. They don't have to have had the personal experience with surrogacy, but we do hope that they'll really be open minded and receptive to the stories that we have.
here, couldn't agree more. Yeah, you're right. I don't know anyone in Congress speaking about it. I wish we'd have somebody like Ivanka who'd be like, right? Like it takes like the big wigs.
Well, I think people might have done surrogacy or egg donation, but they might keep it a secret because that might be, they don't want to alienate constituents or things like that. But I suspect there might be people who have third party experience, and we just hope that whether they say it or not, or there'll be an ally for us this year.
That's it. That's right. Just be an ally. That's all. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ralph, for your time today.
Great to talk with you, Leslie. I'm happy to do it.
What an honor to have Ralph on the show. So much wise, top-notch advice we just received, complimentary, I might add. Subscribe to his newsletter for more wisdom, and don't miss the 5-minute reads on his website, the latest, giving details on how this recently passed in California SB 729 expands fertility coverage for surrogacy and gamete donation. That's all the time we have for today. Liking this episode on whichever platform you're on really goes a long way to getting us heard. Thank you if you do so. You can check out more of these and similar stories on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok at mothersinarms.pod. Thank you for your music at Dante Pascuzzo, and at Pretty Easy Podcasts, thank you for your editing magic. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. May the blessings stay with you.